to another Tales from a Professional Nerd. My name is BryanCPSteele, and I'll be your nerd today and any other day that you watch one of my silly little shows. So today is a very special episode. One that I have been waiting to do for a very long time, and one that has a couple of weird rules involved. But we'll talk about that here in a second. For the people who've been watching the channel or paying attention to my social media or anything like that for a long time, I have talked, at least for roughly the last year, about Secret Project. Well, only recently I've been able to announce what Secret Project is. And Secret Project is the fact that I am the writer and lead designer on the Vampire Bound by Blood crossover from Vampire the Masquerade to be able to play Vampire the Masquerade in D&D 5.5 through D&D Beyond, contracted by Ghostfire Gaming in relation with White Wolf. I know there's a whole lot of legal stuff involved. I figured what I'd do before I jump into the actual product, because like I said, there's a lot of rules today. And part of those rules are because the product's not actually out yet. By the time that we're recording this video, it's still in pre-order. Jump onto the address in the description of the video and go ahead and pre-order it because you get a couple of cool new character sheets. But I digress. Because the product's not actually out yet, there's a lot of mechanical type things and kind of deep dive stuff that I'm not allowed to really get into. Obviously, I would love to tell you everything I possibly can, but with so many powerhouse companies involved and their marketing teams and so forth, they've all got their own plans and special things, and Gen Con coming up, and there's just a lot going on. Since the product hasn't launched yet, I did want to go ahead and kind of warn you ahead of time that this video is not going to go too deep into mechanics or any like the nitty gritty type things that you players and game masters out there might actually be coming to this video specifically to see. Now, I do hope you'll stick around because we're going to talk a little history of the product, a little bit of history as to why the product was created. I know that question has come up a few times. And also, it's a way for me to tell all the people out there that do have some of those questions, hopefully that they believe that this product is in good hands and that it's headed in the right direction. So before we move on, let's talk a little bit about the history of how the product came around. One of up until relatively recently, one of the designers and writers and kind of management members over at Ghostfire Gaming, a gentleman by the name of Sean Merwin. You may know him from the Eldritch Lorecast. He had worked with me on Surviving Strange Hollow, another D&D project D&D related project, an amazing world, very high fantasy setting, which apparently those books are shipping now or soon. I just recently heard that from the guys over at Accidental Cyclops, the company who made Surviving Strange Hollow, with which I joined up, and that's how I got to know Sean. I did not know, I knew of him from his previous amazing works and stuff with Ghostfire and stuff, but I didn't really know him until we started actually working together on Surviving Strange Hollow, because the guys over at Accidental Cyclops, who I have known for decades at this point, in fact, we'll get to that. Sorry, I almost tangented myself into another story. The guys over at Accidental Cyclops, through them, I got to know Sean and work with him a little more directly, and we had some dinner meetings and whatnot, and through that, he and I built a bit of a rapport, and he said some very, very nice things about my work, and it was a nice relationship. It's great to meet someone who's made so many great things, and then to find out that they like the things that you've made and they respect how you work and so forth and so on. Well, at one of those get-togethers, uh, the guys over at Accidental Cyclops and I, the reason why we know each other professionally is just because, everybody in this industry, the gaming industry is the size of a grapefruit. But I've known Jason and now Mikey because we used to LARP Vampire together 25 years ago. Like it's been a long, long time, but we used to get together monthly, bi-monthly, and play Vampire and Werewolf occasionally and whatnot. But that's how I knew them. So a lot of times when we get together and have a few drinks and sit around the campfire and whatnot, we start talking about our old vampire days, our old characters, our old stories. Do everything that every gamer does and relive the old glory days. And Sean got to witness one of these us talking about characters. And, oh, remember that time? And oh, Lex Telias. Like all these things that we've been through that created our relationship, that created our created all the bonds, the late nights sitting around the coffee shop talking about what our characters are going to do, how are we going to spend our influences, the masquerade breach, like all of these things, praxis seizure over your Saganaki, like the goofy things that had happened because of Vampire. And so we were just having a good time, and Sean got to see this firsthand. Well, little did I know that White Wolf and D&D Beyond slash WotC, because they're all one big animal now. But D&D Beyond and White Wolf had approached, from what I understand, had already approached Sean and Simon and those guys from Ghostfire and been like, hey, we're thinking about this as a product. What do you guys think? Do you think that you can put this together? You guys have done amazing, kind of gothic horror stuff with all your Grim Hollow, with the transformations, and you've done scary vampire PCs and stuff before for D&D. Do you think you could make this happen? And I don't know whether it was fresh off of the exposure of all of that Vampire that Sean got absolutely hurled into the rear end or the deep end, the rear end. That's different. Into the deep end, or is it more of a Sean was looking for a particular type of writing. He saw what I did with Surviving Strange Hollow. He knows some of the other things I've done in my past. I've been doing this for 25 years. And the end result is Sean reached out to me. Sean and Joe Rasso reached out to me and was like, "Hey, we need to have a sit down and have a meeting. We've got a project coming up that we'd like to talk to you about." And so we got together, and I want to say, was it Origins? I think it was Origins last year. We got together and had dinner and talked about the preliminary seeds were set. And then fast forward a couple of months, because again, projects do not happen overnight. At Gamehole Con, the two of them and I sat down and actually talked about the brass tacks of the situation. This is the project that they want to make. Do we think it's viable? Do you want to be involved? You have signed all the NDAs. Can't tell anybody or we'll skin you. That kind of thing. And it obviously putting this in front of me was, I've done some, when I was at Renegade for a while, they're doing all the Essence 20 stuff. I got to touch a little bit on Vampire through some of the ancillary products. I got to write an adventure or two for Werewolf. I got to do a little bit of World of Darkness stuff. And late teens, early 20s me was jumping for joy inside, just being able to say that I've worked on a White Wolf related, a World of Darkness product. And so now I've got this sitting in front of me. The concept of, at the time, Sean and I were going to work on it together. We were going to tag team this, and just the sheer idea that I was going to get to do legitimate design work in the World of Darkness, specifically the first product of its kind to bring Vampire the Masquerade into the wider D&D audience. try and give them just a sliver of what I had enjoyed and loved and felt and helped shape my creative mind for decades was unbelievable. And I walked out of that meeting, um, I kind of floated out of that meeting, just sort of wee, because I was so just over the moon about the fact, werewolf poke, um, was I was just absolutely uh, euphoric in the fact that I was going to get to do this. And then we started having some development meetings, and we set some firm guidelines as to it needs to be able to do this, it has to be able to do this. We have to make sure that uh, it is a gate, it is a handhold into the world of darkness, not just a bunch of mechanics thrown on the page. It needs to have the flavor that we love. The stories that we grew up, the long conversations about my clan is better than your clan is better than their clan, but we all hate that guy. Like all of those conversations are what made you know late 90s vampire so powerful and such a powerhouse in the industry. And it is what now almost anything else that I write and design, if it has factions involved in any capacity, I almost always immediately compare it to the level of depth and the level of interaction and I don't want to be like clan nationalism because that sounds awful. That sounds like a horrible concept. But like the favoritism of a player that says, like how often, hell, while I was in the middle of working on this project, I played Blood on the Clock Tower with a bunch of other game designers. Super late at night. It was crazy. It was a terrible idea, but we had a great time. And during the eyes closed part, when everybody, the clock tower keeper is running around, doing all your guy knows this and whatever, and everybody else's eyes are closed, and you're trying to, the idea is to make some noise, make sure that you can't hear what the guy's doing. So what we were doing is we were talking, and through a lot of that, it turned into, well, what vampire clan were you? What vampire clan were you? What clan? None of us, and it was spontaneous. It wasn't, oh, hey, I'm playing vampire tomorrow and I'm going to play a Bruja. So, what are you guys? It was just because Vampire the Masquerade and the World of Darkness collectively is such an integral part of so many of my generation of game designers. Um, it's so much a part of what shaped us into what we became, that it's still a conversation, and the arguments are still there. Someone, I forgot who it was. I think it was Elisa Teague. We were like, well, obviously you're a Toreador, and she got fussy because she's like, no, like, and it's that sort of impact. We made a judgment call about one of our colleagues and friends, that they were of a clan that was not their favored clan, and they got fussy fuss. I'm the same way. A lot of people are like, well, obviously, you're the creative type, you're whatever, you're Toreador, and I generally I've always seen myself as a Bruja, borderline gangrel, and that's one of those things where uh, uh, that's the impact that those things left. And one of the things that I had told Ghostfire from the very beginning is I would want to make sure that we try to put as much of that as we can. One of my least favorite parts about role playing collectively, and doesn't matter the system, is when someone is playing raw mechanics and you ask them what their character is, and they don't tell you who their character is. They tell you what their character is, and that's the only thing. Now, of course, if you're planning a player session or session zero, and you want to make sure that, like, not everybody at the table is playing the dwarven fighter, like, or sometimes that's fun, but you do have to be a little more descriptive. But when someone says, who are you playing? And your answer is, I'm a 3/3 warlock paladin, human for the extra feet. Yep, yep, yep. That isn't that's not my bag. That's not how I want to do things. That's not how I want to see people come to the table at my table anyway. I want you to tell me that same, level 3 paladin warlock human whatever. I want you to tell me that you were the son of the fisherman that swore an oath of vengeance on the local duke who taxed your father into the ground. And in doing so, you made a pact with the local sea gods, the sea demon, the demon of the Ivory Coast, to, whatever, whatever the case may be. But tell me more about your story. Tell me more about the history. Tell me about why your character is the thing that you are. And that was always the part of um, Vampire and the part of World of Darkness that grabbed me from the very beginning is the depth in which these characters were created, especially when we were LARPing. Is you became, at least for a few hours a month or whatever, you became that character to the best of your ability, broken up by a bunch of rock paper scissors. But whatever the case may be, is you really got into that. You wrote emails from the perspective of your character. You had meetings that weren't games with other players in their character, so you could plot and scheme and stuff. Things that most tabletop games just don't do. And that left its imprint on me. And one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we did, to the best of our ability, is try and put just a little bit of that flavor and a little bit of that character and a little bit of that immersion into this product, into Bound by Blood. And I hope that we got there. I mean, I know a lot of it rests in the hand of the storyteller. For the people who did not play White Wolf games that watch this, storyteller is GM, is DM. That's the equatable term for in World of Darkness and White Wolf games. Um, but so we obviously needed to make the game to fit, and to fit to D&D, to make it work mechanically. And we'll talk a little bit of that here in a minute when I get into what actually comes in the product. But I still want to really hammer home the why, and the big reason for that is, gamers like me, old professional nerds like myself. Yeah, I can sit around and wax poetic about late '90s Vampire and the time that this character blood hunted that character, or the time that we all got together and kicked an archon out of our city. Just the that I have that experience. There are a bunch, and I think it goes without argument that things like Critical Role, Dimension 20, um, and 5e D&D collectively have really created thousands upon thousands of new gamers. Whether it's the Critical Role cartoons, Vox Machina and whatnot, or just the proliferation of YouTube gaming. What that has done is it has brought so many new minds and new bodies to the role playing table. A lot of it through D&D. A bunch of those people have never heard of Vampire the Masquerade, and they definitely have not experienced it the way we did back in the day. And it is not a weakness of the system, and it's not a weakness of different versions of Vampire, or different companies that had it. That's not it. It's just time. Uh, Almost poetically, time has moved on from those old editions, but a lot of the stuff and the power and the impact of those editions carries forward. It echoes till today. And one of the things that we wanted to do, this product, is to bring the idea of the World of Darkness, this greater World of Darkness that White Wolf creates, that to the average D&D player, that maybe that's the only game they've ever seen. Somebody who watched Critical Role for a few years and they're just recently dipping their toes at the tabletop game, they see 30, almost 35 years of World of Darkness lore and versions and editions, and it can be a little overwhelming. Just like getting into anything that has been around for so long can be overwhelming if it does not have a way to enter the kind of like, I don't know, I mean, like, not an easy way to enter, but it doesn't have a a gate that is not insurmountable. That's not an obstacle. That's actually inviting. And uh, one of the things that this product we really think will do is there's going to be tons of players out there that D&D players, people that maybe started playing during the pandemic, because D&D Beyond was an amazing tool for them to be able to play. This is an opportunity for them to start getting a taste of what the world of darkness is, the sects, the clans, the traditions, the all these things, all these greater concepts. It is a way for them to experience these using a game system that they already know, a game system that they're familiar with, a game system that that has an amazing digital tool in D&D Beyond, um, and like Roll20 and Foundry and stuff as well. But like collectively, um, the D&D Beyond users that grab this product, this might be their first entry into the concept of the world of darkness, of what White Wolf has created, of what this amazing thing that so many of us just absolutely adore. And to be a part of that, to be to be a part of this grand gesture, this grand invitation to a D&D worlds, to a D&D community to come and enjoy the world of darkness and enjoy vampire is so unbelievably humbling and unbelievably, I'm so honored. That's the only word I can use. And I know that people are gonna be like, God, he is hamming it up. But I don't think you understand. Vampire for me for a long time was very much like it was an escape for me. It was the thing that got me through my late teenage years. Hell, I met my first wife through LARPing. I met many of my best friends to this day that I've known for 30 plus years through Vampire, through LARPing. Um, I I would warrant, I would hazard to say that a lot of my novel writing that I do, some of that tone, some of the plot devices that I have learned over the years may have come from writing character stories and writing backgrounds and getting my storyteller at Beautiful and the Damned to let me play a character that normally wouldn't let somebody play, because I wrote this backstory, this intrinsic backstory of, hey, now that makes sense. Hey, let me in. These are things that I think that Vampire has done for me personally. And if I can share 10%, 5%, if I can share, hell, 1%, if I can share 1% of the joy and imagination and creativity that I found through White Wolf and their products and their product line, if I can share that, 1% of that with the greater D&D community, I will count this a success. I will count this as one of the best things and most notable things that I have done in my career, and I have done a lot. Uh, so it is so unbelievably, it's still a little surreal, knowing that it's up for pre-order, knowing that it exists, hearing from my colleagues at Ghostfire, that they've had a chance to test it and look at the new character sheets and whatnot, and getting messages from them, and being like, dude, this looks great, I can't believe you did this, everything works great, awesome. um it is, uh it still hasn't. I mean, maybe it hasn't sank in yet. It's not fully gelled with me. But um, I can't express how unbelievably thankful I am that Ghostfire picked me to be the one to write and design this. Um, which also, I totally forgot part of the reason how this became kind of fully my baby. um, Partially through the initial planning process of this, Sean Merwin, who was going to be my tag team partner on writing this adventure pack supplement thing, um, got got job offered, whatever the case may be. He was not going to be able to finish his part of this. So the guys over at Ghostfire asked me if I could just kind of take over the rest of it, and it was a good time in my freelancing career. I was able to tell one of my other retainer companies that pays me to make role playing games to ease up on the gas a little bit, give me a little extra time to work on this other thing, and I took over completely, meaning that I went ahead and dove in, and this product now, barring the adjustments and things made through editing and developmental editors, um, is mine. It's something that it's literally my heart on the page, um, which I guess can't get any less literal. I just did that. It's not a page; it's a digital product, and it's not my heart; it's my thoughts and minds. Oh boy. Okay. Again, I get excited, and then people new to this channel are like, "Oh, Bryan's about to Bryan." Um, but I've been chatting about how this came about and why this came about and why this is important to me for a while now. So let's go ahead and change gears and talk a little bit more about the product itself. Um, because I know that's what some of you guys came here for. um, so the Pound by Blood is a adventure set in the Dark Ages, the Dark Ages of vampires. So it's our real world, but obviously changed and altered based off of the happenings of a world of darkness in existence. And the reason why we chose Dark Ages is because since this is a product to bring the vampire mythos onto D&D tables, we felt that it would just make a little more sense for it make an easier transition to not just hurl a bunch of cell phones and cars and automatic weapons of the modern age into the D&D system, and rather with Dark Age it allows us to stay with that that mentality, that melee, ranged bows, crossbows, and the like, things that a D&D player can just go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Um, Also, there hasn't been a new official Dark Ages property of any kind in a long time, and I love Vampire Dark Ages. I thought it was a neat way of giving people a new arena in which to play, a new theater to take their vampires, and the world is different when you don't have traveling from one place to another, when you don't have motels and hotels, and staying in the local inn as a coterie of vampires. um, they're gonna look at you funny when you're like got four drastically different people going, we would like a room. Like it's an awesome backdrop for a lot of really cool storytelling, and mechanically it allowed us to really focus, rather than focus on what the kindred is, what the vampire itself is, the mechanics behind being a kindred. It allowed us to focus on that instead of including a pile of modern era additions, and how do you get past this, and it was cameras. Well, we don't have to worry about those because there aren't any. There's a lot of things that it made for an easier transition in a product, and it allowed us to write a really cool adventure where maybe even because they're almost the opposite of the whole, we wanted to bring vampire to a bunch of masses, a bunch of D&D playing masses that haven't experienced the world of darkness. There's a lot of vampire players that maybe have never experienced the Dark Ages. That book, that product has been around a long time, but there might not be a lot of people who have played outside of the modern era. And so this gave us an opportunity to kind of help put a little more chocolate in the peanut butter, so to speak, to make the perfect Reese's cup out of this product. And so the adventure, obviously, I'm not going to get into the narrative. Let that be a surprise to the people who buy it. But it is a Dark Ages era adventure story, if you will. that takes a coterie of vampires to kind of a little out of the way little hamlet, um, to say goodbye. The adventure is actually called One Last Goodbye. It allows the players to focus a little on the idea of being a timeless creature, and some of the drawbacks to outliving all of your family. Also, so one of the things that we included with the adventure specifically, because it is there's a huge difference between a dungeon crawl D&D adventure and a standard Vampire the Masquerade story. Um, Not to say one is better than the other, but they definitely do different things. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure is that we didn't create an adventure that was just combat rest, combat rest, combat rest. Learn the plot, combat the plot. Like obviously there's going to be combat involved. It is still a role playing game in which those challenges could come up. But we did want to make sure that there's two elements to Vampire that I don't want to say like firmly make Vampire is what it is, but it definitely helps shape the tension and helps shape the story, and that's obviously feeding. Vampires need to feed. You can't just you don't just go, okay, here's all these cool powers for being a vampire, here's all these disciplines, here's the benefits for being in your clan, and the durability of the kindred body, here's all this stuff, and oh, the drawback of you feeding, don't worry about it. No, we had to make sure that feeding is there, but it also sometimes can be a bit of a drag if you've got an entire group of if you've got a coterie of vampires at the table and everybody needs to feed, and they're not playing Sabat where they jump on the same person and shrivel them like a raisin. If you're playing Camarilla vampires and you're playing vampires that are keeping the traditions and trying to hang on to their humanity and not let the beast win, it means that they're going to have to feed, and probably in subtle ways, or in ways that can be covered up, or private ways, secret ways that maintain the masquerade. But what we wanted to do is, some of those scenes, some of those feeding scenes can be amazing, can be unbelievably cool and heartfelt, and ways to display parts of your character to the rest of the table. But it also can turn out to be kind of a drag at a session. Not because of what it is, just because every player has to do it. Everybody has to feed. So we did introduce, we made sure that we added a system specifically detailed in the adventure called narrative feeding, allowing a character to, or allowing a player to look at the storyteller and go, hey, I would like to feed. I do need to feed, but we don't need to spend 25 minutes doing it. Uh, it 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 boils it down to give me your how, give me your where, and I'll give you the difficulty, and you'll make the requisite die rolls to make this happen, and see how successful you are. That way, you can speed things up and make sure the game moves quickly, but you are still feeding and gaining those blood points like you need, like the blood points that keep you going, that fuel a bunch of your stuff. So narrative feeding, and I think that it's going to be a tool for storytellers to decide when to use it. If they're in a super high, deep tension filled, a dramatic moment at some deep club, and one of the characters is really going into this conversation or this situation with an NPC, and turns that into a feeding, awesome. Roll with the scene, lean into the scene, bring that kind of awesomeness to the table. If you've got someone who's like, oh, hey, I just realized my blood points are really low, I should probably grab a quick bite, so to speak. I'm gonna run down to the wharf and see if there's anybody sleeping. That might be something that you can do quickly, as a quick narrative feed. Hey, roll this check this thing. Here you go. Um, just if only to kind of keep the vibe of the game going without everything coming grinding to a halt 5 times for everyone to feed every day or night, I guess the case may be. Um, the hand in hand with that, one of the aspects of Vampire the Masquerade, because it's part of its name, is the Masquerade, and to a lesser extent the other Camarilla traditions as well. But the Masquerade there's a reason why it is arguably the most important tradition. Is because there are people out there that if they knew, humans are scaredy cats. If if humanity collectively knew that vampires existed, they would grab their pitches and torch flakes, their torches and pitchforks. Whoo! Uh, and what that does is it makes an already uh, stressful life as an undead kindred worse if everywhere you go there's people trying to kill you. So the masquerade is a survival tool, and the masquerade all it is basically don't do a bunch of stuff that's going to attract attention to you as a supernatural creature. Uh, whether that means cover up your feeding, whether that means, hey, try not to run at celerity speeds in the middle of the street. Could be could be a good idea. Walk like a person. Hey, and if you've got the ability to grow claws, let's not do that at the nightclub. Like sometimes the masquerade just makes the most amount of sense. Okay, but then there's other parts of it that's don't mention something from a historical fact from before when your character should be. Let's say that your character looks like he's 25 years old, and you talk about being in the trenches at World War II. You're probably going to get some weird looks, and especially if you know things that only a soldier, soldier in the mud pits would know. That's going to raise suspicions, and who knows? That person might tell a person who might tell the guy who knows an inquisitor. Yeah, I'm being hyperbolic, but like these are some of the aspects of the masquerade that need to be kept. And one of the things that we wanted to do is create that and make it easier for new storytellers to get to kind of grok the concept of what the masquerade can do. So one of the things that we did include is a masquerade level system in the adventure specifically. No, it's not a universal rule. It's something that the adventure tells you. Hey, if you're running a World of Darkness adventure using Bound by Blood, uh, recognize what the masquerade is, and here are the different levels of kind of how far along the locals. It starts at a way where people are just kind of generally, in the Dark Ages in a way, it starts in a way that's like people understand that there's things that go bump in the night, but they might not necessarily know that it's vampires. They may not necessarily know that Ted the blacksmith is a Bruja. Like they don't know this, but they might suspect. And so it's basically a sliding scale, and there's different things that happen based on that scale. And the more the masquerade gets pressed, the more it gets broken and breached, the more likely the vampires are going to have a harder time with some of the night to night things that they do. Feeding becomes far more difficult if everyone and their brother locks their doors and shutters their windows, and sleeps with an axe by the side of the bed because of the monster that roams the streets at night. uh, you are far less likely to get that waitress to let you walk them to their car so you can get a quick bite right before you vanish into the evening, if there are rumors running around about disappearances in the streets. This is um, the stuff of masquerade that can't really be fully codified. Like, it can't fully be gamified. The storyteller just has to kind of figure out what that can be. Because also, if you don't impose those sorts of things, if you don't create that World of Darkness mythos that the night is the night is full of terrors. If you don't create that atmosphere for your game, then it does. There's a term that I've heard several times. Superheroes with no, was it superheroes with fangs? I think so. It's a term basically meaning that if you take away all the tension, if you take away all the stakes, no pun intended, of okay, maybe a little intended. If you take away all that stuff from from the World of Darkness, you just end up having a bunch of superpowered creatures that can do whatever they want. They can do unbelievable things, and then there's no repercussion. So we wanted to make sure that was that feeling, that mentality was there. So that way, when players, new players come to this through Bound by Blood, they can understand what what it should feel like being one of these kindred, in this world that you are lasting through on as an immortal creature, as this ageless this thing fighting this hunger every day, every night. I don't know. Every day is 24-hour day. There we go. Um, Basically, I really wanted to make sure that y'all knew that the adventure is written specifically to try and bring people, to bring their mentality. There's the call out notes, the things that are in the adventure is to try and make a D&D themed rules wise adventure, to make it feel more like a World of Darkness story, and to give the new storytellers as many tools in their toolbox as they can possibly have to make that into a World of Darkness story, and not just a D&D dungeon crawl. Now, that being said, that's the adventure side of things. The mechanical side of things, the actual kindred class, we went with a class because one of the things that I looked at, rather than creating another kindred, an origin or a species, or something along those lines, is there will be players out there that they see these cool vampire rules and go, I just want to use this cool vampire in my D&D game. I'm playing Ravenloft. I want to, I want to make Strahd a Lasombra. Like there's that aspect of things. And in a world, in a world, in a world where there are elves and dwarves and halflings and that sort of thing, and also vampires, uh, we don't want to say that all of those other species can't become kindred. So that's why kindred ended up as a class instead of a species, because it allows for a player during the course of the game, or a storyteller, to make someone else a vampire, make them into a kindred by letting them multi-class into kindred levels, or start the game off with being this vampiric creature that has a different origin. Again, YTYC, your table, your call. If you want to bring that stuff into your D&D game, the rules will match. You totally can, and that's why we went with a class. It also meant, because we knew from the very beginning that we wanted to put clans. Obviously, we can't make a World of Darkness, we can't make a Vampire the Masquerade thing and not have clans. And the clans are so diverse and so uniquely themed between each other that just boiling them down to a different background, or just boiling it down to here's a feat, it just felt wrong. And obviously, we didn't want to create a new class for every single a completely full class for the brew, a completely full class for the venture, because then we run into a situation of you got 20 levels worth of stuff, and What happens if you have someone that goes, I'm a third level Bruja, fifth level Ventru. It would not make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. Whereas in D&D, once you've picked your subclass, it stays with you. That is what you are. You are that subclass. And so we were like, okay, the class will be the kindred. I am now a kindred. But then your subclass will define your clan. Now, what that does mean is that in a game where someone starts at first level, your first and second levels, you are still kind of figuring out what yes, narratively you probably know what you are because of who sired you. Um, but you're still figuring out exactly where you are. And this is where it comes into where the storyteller comes into play. I mentioned in the adventure there's a bunch of storyteller callouts. Well, even in the class, there is one storyteller and player callout specifically under the subclasses that talks about how if you are playing a Vampire the Masquerade game, not a D&D game with Vampire the Masquerade stuff in it, but actually a game set in the world of darkness, you should probably start your character at that subclass level or begin the game knowing where your subclass is going to be. That way you don't run into the narrative issue of, well, my Ventru sire created me, but oh man, I popped out of the Zombra. Like we wanted to make sure that the note was there for the people who don't know. I mean, there very well could be people out there that look at this and they didn't know how the clans functioned, and they believed that you could, kind of join and quit clans willy nilly. So what we wanted to make sure is each one of those clan subclasses, of which we only had room in this first product for six. The Bruja, the Gangrel, the Nosferatu, the Toreador, the Ventru, and then we had a little bit of a nudge based off of the fact that this was a Dark Ages game, and I may like them a great deal, so they did earn their seat quickly. Were the Lasombra. Now some people would be like, but wait, what about the Malkavians? What about the Tremere? What about? There are more clans and bloodlines out there that I cannot wait to make subclasses for, but this is one product that we had to really focus on getting it done and done right and made sure it was play tested and made sure that it worked. Hopefully, knock on wood, that I will get called in to make more of these based on the success of the first. That is that fingers crossed. I would love to be able to do the whole dang thing and then have them high five me into some more World of Darkness stuff later on. Werewolf, here I come. But I digress. This is about this particular product. And this particular product has those six clans available as subclasses. Each clan has their own feel, their own disciplines based off of the different class features. And then also I made sure that one of the aspects of Vampire that I don't know if a lot of current like recent generation gamers will know. One of the big things about playing Vampire is the negatives, is the drawback, the anchor that's behind you, your clan bane, if you will. And I wanted to make sure that got added, that there is technically a negative class feature for every subclass, and that is your clan bane. That is the part of your blood that brings with it just a little bit of a cost. You get a lot of really cool powers, you get a lot of really cool survivability, and a lot of really neat stuff you can do with your vitae, but comes at a cost. And some of that cost is the hunger and the beast. Some of that cost is making sure that you've got to drink blood, or you eventually will die of malnutrition. There's those sorts of things. But then there's also the cost of being the clan that you are. Every clan has its own weakness, and I wanted to make sure that all of those subclasses had a taste of that weakness when you're sitting down and figuring out what kind of vampire you want to play, what kind of kindred you want to bring to the table. You have to decide, is that worth it knowing that I've got this as well? Or do I do this other one instead? That kind of thing. And there's just a lot. There's a lot of stuff in the World of Darkness to be brought in, and not a lot of room in each subclass. So we did create new origin feats and a whole pile of kindred feats. Now I say that specifically because they are feats that require you to be kindred to have, because they make sense. And a lot of those feats are different um, different things that help shape each vampire, each kindred into being their own character. One of the things that we were worried about, and some of the playtesters had mentioned early on, is if you were playing a Bound by Blood style Vampire the Masquerade game, um, everybody at the table, more than likely, unless you're have like a ghoul or something, um, they're all going to be kindred. And won't that get stale? Won't that get boring? The everybody has the same class features and whatnot. Yeah, there's subclass changes, but even then, that's just a handful of features as they gain levels. Um, and the kindred feat system is what allowed us to just pump an unbelievable amount of variation into that basic kindred class, because there's this host of stuff that every kindred. So yeah, if they all choose to pick the same things as they progress their character, yeah, they're going to feel very samey. But that could be said of any game. Even if you're playing old school Vampire, if I looked at the guy next to me and was like, "Hey, I'm going to copy all of your dots dot for dot," we're making the same character. So yeah, that's always a possibility. But we wanted to make sure that there was fertile ground that everybody could draw from and make their own individual characters. Flavor that with the subclass, and you can create a pretty widely diverse crew of all the same class, because each subclass and each set of feats will drastically change what can be done. And then you just got to survive the nights, lots of nights, I suppose. So I know we're crumping up here on the time frame for the episode, and I have tons more that I could say. And I will probably do a part two to this once the product has dropped and I can actually talk more about it. Or you know what? Here I will. We're gonna promise this now. The week after Gen Con, because it drops right before Gen Con. The week after Gen Con, I'll do a live video. The part two of this will happen in August, and it will be a live video. I'll make sure it gets scheduled way early, and that way I'll be able to answer questions and talk more about the product, since it will be fully out and about, and I won't have anything that I can hold back on. So I think that's I know this has kind of been a ramble, but that's if you've watched my show, I do a lot of that. But there's so much that can be said about Vampire and bringing that as a crossover to D&D, and I could go on for hours. I can't, because I don't want to make a giant boring video for you. I want to try and end it at a good note, but I hope that my rambling and my conversation and whatnot has helped you see how much love and care has been put into this product, and how unbelievably proud I am of the finished Bound by Blood. I can't express to you all more how important this product is to me, just as a person and as a gamer, and as the trench coat wearing, fangs at the mall weirdo that I was for a very long time. That person is glowing knowing that this product is a thing, and I hope that you guys will enjoy it. I hope that you'll give it a chance, take a look at it, and whether you are bringing kindred to your vampire, or to your D&D tabletop, to go try and drink a little dragon blood, or if you are running World of Darkness games using the system that we have created, or if you're just checking it out because you are curious. I hope that you'll give it a chance. Um, as far as that goes, that is the end of the plot of the main thumbnail of this video. If that's the only reason you came here, please have a great day, be safe, and try and leave every room a little happier than when you got there. Um, if you are here for more, stick around after the break for the week in Bryan. Bum, bum. And we're back for the week in Bryan. Bow, bow, bow. All right, so personally, things have been okay. I'm a little upset in the way that, like, I still have dealer plates on my new SUV that we had to get. And whether it was the lawn mowing service kicked up a rock, or whether it was the intense heat for a couple of days, or just maybe some random kid in the alley, we got a big crack in the driver's side door window, and it's going to cost me like $500 to fix the damn thing. So little depressing, especially considering it happened right before Gen Con, which is an expense more than you know. Just timing, but everything else is going well. We're doing all right. The air conditioning is up and working, and yeah, everything else has been just fine. It's just annoying, you know, when you're starting to get ahead, bam, here's a new bill. Um, bleh. Let's see. Gaming wise, I haven't done much of anything other than play some video games, and play some miniatures games. Um, Mostly for playtest. Yeah, I haven't really done anything for fun other than video games in a while, so I should change that. Maybe this weekend I'll try and play something that's just for fun. Uh, Hobby wise, I have done nothing. Um, Nothing at all, in fact. Um, yeah, I wish I had more to tell you there. I just, hell, my minis case from Origins is still sitting over there, unpacked. So yeah, no, I've just been very busy with work and the like, um, to to really spend any time over in the hobby section. I feel bad. Also, as far as the hobby section goes, I put the order in for the new plate on the Warzone Eternal trophy, the Eternal Champions trophy, and I'm going to go pick that up here in a couple of days. So when that comes in, I will show you guys that we now have 2 plates and 4 names. Well, I guess 3 names since Zach won twice. But either way, it grows, it becomes cooler, it becomes better. And now work-wise, so a lot has been happening. I put in a new pitch for a new Shadowrun novel. I am doing a bunch of monster creation for the World of Drashar, but in a different format. Thundercats is getting ready to go to print. The Intergalactic Heroes is now fully in I believe it's completely through editing now, like all 3 books, and the art is starting to come in, so we're getting closer and closer to that being a crowdfund. I've officially started a very cool bonus feature that's going to come out in October. The Xeogenesis, hopefully, fingers crossed, the last rendition of playtest rules is going to go to become a PDF probably later today, in fact. And I've already started the preliminary work on the next faction. Warzone Eternal, doing great. I have an update to the playtest rules coming out relatively soon. And then, oh yeah, and I picked up an extra an extra consultation gig where I'm going to help a miniatures game company or a guy creating a new miniatures game. I'm going to help get his game from notes to final rules. Kind of bring it across. He's got a great set of basics already built, and I just need to push it across that storyline or across the finish line. Storyline. Man. All right. Well, that's pretty much it. So I've been a busy lad. And it does not look like it's going to slow down anytime soon, but I don't necessarily mind because A, the money's good, but also B, it's all a bunch of really good products. Like, there's nothing on my plate right now that I think is a drag. And that means the world to me, meaning that I can come into the studio, work my 8 to 9 hours, and walk out knowing that I've done some really cool stuff. So that's all I can ask for. Without further ado, I will let you guys go. So please be safe, wash your hands, get your shots. Just, try not to be a jerk and make everyone a little happier than when you got there. And I think that we'll be okay. So until next week, stay safe, have fun, play some games. I'll see you.